Good morning, children. Yesterday we have discussed SST history chapter regarding what happened in the past, how they were writing, how they were living histories, and what are the sources, new and old terminologies, and how they were living 1,000 years ago. We have discussed all about them. What is an archaeologist? Who are archaeologists? What they are doing? What were the sources they were getting? What was the new and social political groups that had emerged in those days? All these things we have discussed. Now we are going to discuss about the region and empire. Large states like those of Cholas, Tughlaqs or Mughals encompassed many regions. A Sanskrit persisting, for example, praising the Delhi Sultan Ghiyazuddin Balban, explained that he was the ruler of a vast empire that stretched from Bengal in Afghanistan in the west and included all the South India, Dravida. So this is how the rulers were ruling the areas, and they were conquering the whole South India. It was about the Delhi Sultanate. Now let us move for the language and region. By 700, many regions already possessed distinct geographical dimensions and their own language and cultural characteristics. You will learn more about these in chapter 9. They were also associated with specific ruling dynasties. There was a considerable conflict between these states. Occasionally, dynasties like the Cholas, Khajis, Tughlaqs and Mughals were able to build an empire that was pan-regional, spanning diverse regions. So here we can see that there were geographical dimensions. They were speaking their own languages, and they learnt. There were different dynasties who were ruling. There were conflicts between the states. The persons who were ruling the neighboring kingdoms, they were not like friends. There was having conflicts between themselves. Tughlaqs and Mughals were able to build an empire in that period. Right, not all these empires were equally stable or successful. All these empires were not equally stable. You can see one king was powerful and another king was weak. As the Delhi Sultanates were more powerful than the Indian kings. Like that you can see. When the Mughal Empire declined in the 18th century, it led to the re-emergence of regional states, but years of imperial pan-regional rule had altered the character of the regions. Here what is happening? They have altered the character of the regions. Here what happens when imperial rule started? That is when the Mughal Empire came into existence. You can see there are a lot of changes. When Hindu king is ruling, there will be changes in the architecture, in the building of temples and all. The architectural changes will take place. The collection of taxes changes takes place. Rules and regulation changes. And when there Mughal Empire, definitely he will have his own rules and regulations. Architectural things will change. They start building the mosques. They start building the ghoris. Right, like that the architectural changes we can see. Across most of the subcontinent, the regions were left with the legacies of the big and small states that had ruled over them. This was apparent in the emergence of many distinct and shared traditions. Here you can see that they were ruled by the different people, and there were the different traditions were emerging. In the realms of governance, the management of the economy, allied cultures and language. There were different languages spoken. There was different management of the economy. I told you collections of taxes will be different from one king to the another king. Allied cultures. I told you, if there is a Muslim, Muslim king, he will start building the tombs. He will start building the mosque, he will start building the ghoris more and more. Right, like this the culture changes. And language has automatically the language also changes. If he is a Mughal, he will start everything in Urdu or in the Arabic language, and if he is in the Hindu, it will be in the Sanskrit or Prakrit languages. Though the 1000 years between 700 and 1750, the character of the different regions did not grow in isolation. Right? There was no isolation. People were not isolated. They were able to move from one place to the another place. These regions felt the impact of larger pan-regional forces of integration without ever quite losing their distinctiveness. The regions started getting developed without any, what you can say, quite they are losing their distinctiveness. Every region has its own importance, it has its own culture, it has its own traditions. That was not affected. People were moving from one place to another, but the region's distinctiveness was still there. It was not at all affected. Old and new religions. The 1000 years of history that we are exploring witnessed major developments in the religious traditions. We are now talking about 1000 years back, what had happened or what has happened. So in those days there were major developments which has been witnessed by the people. People's belief in the divine was sometimes deeply personal. So what was happening here? It was deeply personal. People were following the God more than anything, more than the king, more than anything. They were following the beliefs that they had kept on the divine, that is on the God. But more usually it was collective. Collective belief in a supernatural agency religion was often closely connected with the social economic organization of local communities. They had a deep belief on the religion, deep belief on the regional activities, right? They were following deeply, very deeply their religions. As the social worlds of these groups altered, so too did their beliefs. They were less altering themselves because they believed in the social beliefs, right? They were not ready to alter on any condition. It was during this period that important changes occurred in what we call Hinduism today. Yes, in this time, what happened? Hinduism came into existence. People started believing themselves. People started believing in the caste. People started believing in their religion. And more what we call today Hinduism, it came into existence. These included the worship of new deities, the construction of temples by royalty, and growing the importance of Brahmanas, the priests, as the dominant groups in the society. So here you can see there were a lot of people were worshipping new deities, means new gods, new, what you can say, Swamiji, saints. They all came into existence, and construction of temples was going on. Royalty means collection of taxes was done for building the temples. Growing importance of Brahmanas. Brahmanas means the people who were worshipping the god, the priest. Their group started growing slowly, and they started becoming the dominant groups in the society. Their knowledge of Sanskrit texts earned the Brahmanas a lot of respect in society. Yes, whatever the knowledge of Sanskrit they were having, it earned the Brahmanas very good respect in the society. Their dominant position was consolidated by the support of their patrons, new rurals searching for prestige. Yes, this is very important. New rurals, new patrons we saw, they were searching for the prestige. One of the major developments of this period was the emergence of the idea of bhakti, of a loving personal deity that devotees could reach without the aid of priests or elaborate rituals. You will be learning about this and other traditions in the chapter 8. So what the major developments which had emerged in this period was the idea of bhakti. Very important. To reach the God, we don't need any agents like priests and all. You can reach the God by the bhakti, and that system had emerged in those days. In Muslims community, we call the Sufi saints. They start singing. In that they sing the bhakti songs which reach to the God. So like that, by our bhakti only we can reach the God. We don't need the agents like priests and all. In that period, this had emerged. This was also the period when new religions appeared in the subcontinent. New religions now had come into existence. Merchants and migrants first brought the teachings of the Holy Quran to India in the 7th century. So merchants and migrants. Merchants means the traders. Migrants means the person who are moving from one place to another place. So they brought the Quran to India in the 7th century. So Muslims started coming to India from the 7th century. Muslims regard the Quran as their holy book and accept the sovereignty of one God. Yes, here they are treating Quran as their holy book. How we treat Ramayana, Mahabharata, Bhagavad Gita as our holy book, like that they were treating Quran as their holy book, and they followed only one God, Allah, whose love, mercy and bound embrace all those who believe in Him without regard to social background. So without regard to social background, His love, mercy and bounty, it is embraced, it is equal to all the people, whether you are from poor class, middle class or rich class. The what you can say, the love, mercy, the bounty or the blessings of Allah is same on the all. Many rurals were patrons of Islam, and the ulama learned theologians and jurists, and like Hinduism, Islam was interpreted in a variety of ways by its followers. And like Hinduism, how Hinduism is there in India, in the Islam countries they are following the Muslims they follow the Islam patterns of the life, like ulama and theologians and jurists are there. There were the Shia Muslims who believed that the Prophet Muhammad's son-in-law Ali was the legitimate leader of the Muslim communities. So in that Muslim community there are two religions, like the Shia Muslims and the Sunni Muslims. Like in Hinduism we have lot of castes and subcastes, Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Shudras, Vaishyas. Like that we have lot of caste, subcaste, caste and subcaste, but here it is not like that. They have only two communities, that is Shia Muslims and Sunni Muslims. And Shia Muslims, they believe that Prophet Muhammad, you have already learned about the Prophet Muhammad, his son-in-law Ali is the legitimate leader of the Muslim community. They follow the teachings of the son-in-law Ali. Whose son-in-law? Muhammad, Prophet Muhammad's son-in-law. And the Sunni Muslims who accepted the authority of the early leaders, Khalifas of the community and the succeeding Khalifas, they were often important differences between the various schools of law, Hanifi and Shafi'i, mainly in India, and in the theology and mystic traditions. So there were differences. There were Khalifas who were the leaders of the Sunni Muslims. So there were the various schools of law, right? And in that school of law there was Hanifai and Shafi'i, mainly in India they were there, and their theories were different, and mystic traditions, so the traditions were also different from this Shia Muslims and the Sunni Muslim community. Thinking about time and historical period, historians do not see time just as passing of hours, days or years, as a clock or a calendar. Yes, historians cannot see, because it is not just they have passed one day or they have passed the time, they have passed the days or years. It is not a calendar or it is a clock. Time also reflects the changes in social and economic organization, in the persistence and transformation of ideas and belief. Yes, from one year to another year, what social changes took place? What political changes took place? What were the transformation of ideas, beliefs that changed, that took changes in from one year to the another year? This was the thing which the historians wanted to know. How it was changing, what was the political beliefs that were changing, what were the economic policies that was brought, how there was a organizational changes in the society. These are the things which the historians were eager to know. The study of time is made somewhat easier by dividing the past into large segments, periods that possesses shared characteristics. Here the period, the time was made helpful to divide the past into large segments, like for example periods, and from 1000 AD to 200 AD. This like this period 100 BC to 200 BC, and that possesses shared characteristics. What was the shared characteristics? What were the characteristics of the persons? In the middle of the 19th century, British historians divided the history of India into three periods, that is Hindu, Muslim and British. In the 19th century, the British historians, they divided the history of India into three periods. Firstly, India was ruled by the Hindus. Next came the Muslims. They started ruling the India. After that, the British came and they started ruling the India. This division was based on the idea that religion of rulers was only important historical change, and that were no other significant developments in the economy, society or culture. Such a division also ignored the rich diversity of the subcontinent. See here what happened, there was no other significant developments. Whatever the historians wrote, they wrote about the Hindu kings, they wrote about the Muslim kings, they wrote about the British viceroys, but they ignored the rich diversity of the subcontinent. They ignored about how society was, what type of culture they were following. All these things was ignored. Few historians follow this periodization today. Most look to the economic, social factors to characterize the major elements of different movements of the past. Yes, different movements of the past which had taken place. What were the economic factors? What were the social factors? What that had given the push for the movements for in the past, that all were ignored. The histories you read last year included a wide range of early societies, hunter-gatherers, early farmers, people living in towns and villages, early empires and kingdoms. Yes, you have read about the early things, early societies, how they were food gathering, how they were hunting, how they were living in towns, how they were living in villages. All these things you have read. The histories you will be studying this year are often described as medieval. Medieval means in the middle part, what happened, how the changes took place. You will find out more about the spread of peasant societies, the rise of regional and imperial state formations, sometimes at the cost of pastoral and forest people, the development of Hinduism and Islam as major religions, and the arrival of European trading companies. Here you can see that there were regional changes, imperial state formations happened, there was the development of Hinduism, there was a development of Islam culture, along with that there was the arrival of the European trading companies. These 1000 years of Indian history witnessed considerable change. After all, the 16th and 18th centuries which were quite different from the 8th or the 11th centuries. Therefore, describing the entire period as one historical unit is not without its problems. Moreover, the medieval period is often contrasted with the modern period. So, it is not an entire period, but there is a contrast. Means there are differences between the medieval period and the modern period. Modernity carries with it a sense of material progress and intellectual advancement. This seems to suggest that the medieval period was lacking in any change whatsoever, but of course we know this was not the case. There was intellectual advancement, material progress, buildings, material progress, intellectual advancement, science and technology was not so much developed in the medieval period, but in the modern period it started developing. During these 1000 years, the societies of the subcontinent were transformed often, and economics in several regions reached a level of prosperity that attracted the interest of European trading companies. Right? During these 1000 years, the European trading companies were attracted more by the by the developments, economic developments, political developments which had taken place in India. As you read it in this book, you look out for the signs of change and the historical processes at work. So in this book we are going to see what were the changes that attracted the British people in India. Let us see what are that, what have attracted them, right, in the next chapter. What have made them to come to in India, what have made them to live in India, what have made them to progress in India, what have made them to stay for a longer period in India. Okay children, please write the question and answers of this chapter, exercise question and answers. If you have any doubts, please come to school and rectify your doubts. Thank you.